El Salvador may be the smallest country in Central America, but its geography is nothing short of extraordinary. It's a nation compressed between mountains, oceans, forests, and fault lines that make even seasoned travelers do a double take. When most people picture El Salvador, they imagine lush coffee plantations, dramatic volcanoes rising out of verdant valleys, and beaches kissed by Pacific surf. But the truth is far more extreme, far more varied, and far more surprising than most people realize. To start with, El Salvador is the smallest country in mainland Central America. Yet it packs more geographical diversity into its borders than many countries 3 or 4 times its size. From rugged highlands dotted with cloud forests to black sand beaches sculpted by volcanic activity, from deep freshwater lakes to tectonic fault systems that reshape the landscape, El Salvador's geography defies the expectation of small and simple. One of the most striking features about the country is how volcanic it is. El Salvador sits squarely on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide and collect energy that gets released in the form of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. In fact, El Salvador's nickname among geologists is literally the land of volcanoes. The country contains around 20 volcanoes, many of which are active or potentially active. Some tower over the landscape like guardians of stone, while others rise so sharply from the surrounding plains that travelers describe them as mountains frozen in mid-ascent. Among these, the Santa Ana volcano, also known as Ilamatepec, holds a particularly extreme distinction. At over 7,500 feet, it's the highest volcano in El Salvador, but its crater isn't just high. It's one of the deepest volcanic craters in all of Central America. Within that crater sits a turquoise acidic lake, whose color is so vibrant that photos of it defy belief. This lake is nothing like a peaceful mountain pool. Its waters are so acidic that boots and metal can corrode if submerged for long. Climbing Santa Ana isn't just a trek, it's a journey into the Earth's chemical fury. Not far from Santa Ana lies another extreme geographic landmark, Izalco volcano, sometimes called the Lighthouse of the Pacific. Izalco was one of the youngest volcanoes on Earth. It appeared in the 18th century and erupted almost continuously for more than 200 years. Sailors used its glow as a living beacon, hence its dramatic nickname. Though quieter today, Izalco's growth pattern and constant shifts in shape make it a living testament to how dynamic El Salvador's landscape really is. But volcanism isn't the only extreme process shaping the nation. El Salvador sits atop several major tectonic fault lines, including segments of the Middle America Trench, where the Cocos Plate subducts beneath the Caribbean Plate. This subduction zone doesn't just produce volcanoes, it triggers frequent, often powerful earthquakes. In some years, El Salvador experiences dozens of seismic events, some imperceptible and others strong enough to reshape communities and rivers. The entire country is essentially built on a live tectonic mosaic. This tectonic activity has given rise to extreme elevation changes over short distances. Within just a few miles, you can descend from highland pine forests at 6,000 feet to coastal plains at sea level. These rapid shifts influence climate zones, vegetation, and even weather patterns. One moment you can be hiking through cool highland fog forests where moss hangs thick from every branch. 20 minutes later, you're standing on a sun-baked beach, listening to Pacific breakers crash against volcanic rock. Speaking of beaches, the coastline itself is nothing like the warm pastel beaches of the Caribbean. El Salvador's Pacific coast is rugged, powerful, and geologically dramatic, shaped by thousands of years of volcanic sediment and tectonic uplift. The cliffs are steep, the swells are strong, and the waves are legendary among surfers. In fact, El Salvador has become one of the world's premier big-wave surf destinations, and that's not coincidence. The ocean floor drops abruptly offshore, creating powerful hollow waves that challenge even the most experienced surfers. The beaches themselves are often covered in black volcanic sand, a product of centuries of lava flows, ash deposits, and wave action grinding rock into fine grains. Black sand absorbs heat far more efficiently than white coral sand, so the beaches can become scorching under midday sun, making barefoot walking a test of endurance. Some stretches of beach look like polished onyx under golden light, a visual contrast that feels almost otherworldly. Inland from the coast, El Salvador's river systems are equally dramatic. Rivers like the Lempa, Torola, and Grande de San Miguel carve through valleys and gorges, transporting vast amounts of sediment from mountains to sea. The Lempa River, in particular, is massive for such a small nation. It drains nearly half the country and is the backbone of El Salvador's hydroelectric power system. Throughout the rainy season, rivers swell dramatically, carving new channels and reshaping floodplains in ways that are both destructive and life-giving. In the heart of the country lies Lake Ilopango, another geological extreme. This vast crater lake fills a caldera created by one of Central America's largest volcanic eruptions some 1,500 years ago. The eruption was so massive that ash from Ilopango spread across much of the region, and the climatic disturbance may have influenced civilizations far beyond El Salvador. Today, the lake is peaceful on the surface, but its size and history reflect truly extreme volcanic power. Its waters plunge to depths over 800 feet, making it one of the deepest lakes in Central America. To the southwest is Lake Coatepec, a beautiful mar lake that occupies the crater of another extinct volcano. Surrounded by plunging slopes and coffee farms, Coatepec's waters have an intensity of color that shifts from turquoise to cobalt depending on the angle of the sun. But unlike many scenic lakes, its floor drops off suddenly. Only moments after stepping in, you can find yourself floating over open water hundreds of feet deep. The extreme nature of El Salvador's terrain also produces some surprising microclimates. In the western highlands, temperatures can feel near temperate, with cool nights and morning fogs that transform the mountains into surreal landscapes. A few dozen miles away in the coastal plains, tropical heat and humidity dominate. These climatic differences occur over such short distances that a single road trip can take you through multiple distinct weather regimes. In the northeast, near the municipality of Cacaopera, cloud forests cling to steep slopes where moisture condenses constantly from pass-through winds. These forests are home to unique mosses, orchids, and bird species rarely found elsewhere in Central America. Yet just a short descent below these mist-soaked peaks, the landscape gives way to dry tropical forest and savanna, an abrupt ecological transition that feels like stepping between worlds. Elevation doesn't just affect climate, it also affects water distribution. El Salvador's high peaks capture moisture during the rainy season, feeding springs and aquifers that supply drinking water to towns and cities. However, because the country has no large glaciers or permanent snowpack, its freshwater supply fluctuates with seasonal rains and droughts. Some rivers that roar in June can dwindle to shallow trickles by the end of the dry season, reflecting how extreme hydrology is woven into everyday life. Volcanic soils are another extreme element of El Salvador's geography. They are incredibly fertile, which is why the country became a major center of coffee production. On the slopes of volcanoes like Izalco and San Salvador, coffee plants thrive in rich, mineral-laden soils that were once molten rock. Yet these soils also erode rapidly if forests are removed, creating steep gullies and unstable slopes that can fail catastrophically during heavy rains. El Salvador's urban geography is similarly shaped by natural extremes. The capital, San Salvador, sits in a tectonic basin surrounded by volcanic highlands. This location means the city is protected on some sides by steep mountains, but also exposed to lahars, volcanic mudflows that can occur when heavy rains mix with ash and loose soil on slopes. Urban planners have to contend not just with earthquakes, but with the complex interplay of elevation, soil, and water movement. The country's rivers also create extreme canyon systems in places like El Imposible National Park, where deep ravines slash through limestone and volcanic rock. El Imposible's name isn't poetic exaggeration. The terrain really does look impenetrable in places, with jagged ridges and sheer drop-offs that challenge even experienced hikers. It's a landscape shaped by the collision of tectonic forces and relentless rainwater erosion over millions of years. Coastal geography adds another layer of dramatic variation. In contrast to the Pacific's black sand beaches, El Salvador also has estuaries and mangrove forests, where rivers meet the ocean. These ecosystems support fish nurseries, crustaceans, and migratory birds, creating an abrupt contrast from pounding surf to calm, brackish waters. Mangroves act as natural buffers against storm surge, and their tangled roots stabilize sediments that might otherwise wash away in El Salvador's powerful tides. The coastline itself features estuaries, lagoons, and tidal flats that reshape with each season. During the wet months, rivers flush sediment into coastal bays, building up sandbars and deltas that shift with the rhythms of tides and river flow. During the dry months, these same areas can appear almost barren, with evaporative salts bleaching the flats under relentless sun. El Salvador also holds a geographic record that many people find surprising. It is the most densely populated country in continental Americas. That density places tremendous pressure on land use, particularly in valleys and plains where people cluster for water access and flat agricultural terrain. As a result, natural landscapes, forests, wetlands, mountain slopes intersect directly with human communities. The boundary between wild and inhabited land is often narrow, meaning geography isn't just a backdrop, it's part of everyday life. River deltas in places like the Jalisco Bay Biosphere Reserve are another extreme feature. This massive bay system is fed by multiple rivers and forms one of the largest mangrove complexes in Central America. It's a hotbed of biodiversity. Crocodiles, turtles, wading birds, and countless fish species move through its waters. What makes it extreme is not just its ecological richness, but its dynamic nature. Tides, river flow, and sediment deposition constantly reshape the bay's contours. Another striking fact about El Salvador's geography is how rapidly elevation can influence rainfall patterns. Mountains act as barriers, squeezing moisture out of passing air masses and creating wet windward slopes and dry leeward valleys. A reminder that small spaces can contain vast wonders, that landscapes are not static backdrops but active, evolving systems, and that even the tiniest nations can be guardians of some of the world's most extreme geographical stories.